appreciate you all coming out to support the school and the budget. I hope we see everybody come out to vote on May 2nd. At this time, I'd like to open up the public hearing tonight for the Acton School budget.
Thank you, Kim. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight. It's been a pleasure working with the school committee and the Warrant Finance Committee. This is my 7th budget. I've been here 7 years. And each year we seem to refine the process and get a little bit better at it. So I want to thank Judy Shane and the school committee and Dennis Long with the Warrant Finance. We started this process Paul and I started it in November, working with teachers and looking at cost centers. And then we met at least once a month, if not twice a month, through February and March. And the budget was turned over to the school committee and voted upon by the school committee and Warrant Finance a couple of weeks ago. The budget books are in front of you. There's a number of us here that can answer the questions depending on what you have for questions. It might be a school committee member, it might be myself, it could be Mike Corey. Andy's with us tonight too if it's a facilities question. A numbers question will probably come from Paula. If I could introduce Paula Lantang, who's our new finance director. Paula, would you stand up for a minute? This is Paula, who's worked with us. She's done a great job. Many of you will get to know her. Kim retired and we brought Paula on and she's been awesome. So the other thing is if you have any questions that we can't answer tonight, just like we did in all of our budget meetings, we'll write those up. We'll get an answer, and because we didn't collect email addresses tonight, perhaps what we'll do is we'll post any questions that aren't answered tonight on the website. So it'll be Q and then A and give us 48 hours to pull together the answer if we can't answer it tonight. So I will turn it over to you, the people of Acton, to ask any questions, and depending on what the question is, I might look to one of my colleagues to answer it or do the best I can. Thank you. Well, these are the aggregate numbers for each article, and then each one of these numbers is broken down in detail in there.
Okay.
And then we'll refer to the budget book if there's particular questions about the aggregates.
All right, so I'll start out. All right. So, Town of Acton, Maine. Special town meeting warrant for Robert Anderson, constable in the Town of Acton. In the name of the state of Maine, you are hereby requested to notify and warn inhabitants of Town of Acton qualified to vote in the town affairs to assemble at the town hall on Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023 at 8 a.m. in the morning to act on the following articles. First article is to choose a moderator for the meeting. After the election of the moderator, the polls will be open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to vote on the following referendum questions. Article 2, shall the town appropriate the sum of $6,193,185 and raise the sum of $5,372,837 for the 2023-24 school budget. The Town of Acton school budget submitted in Article 2 totals $6,193,185. It includes locally raised funds in the amount of $5,372,837 to be assessed to town taxpayers in accordance with state law. The locally raised amount exceeds the state's essential programs and services funding model by $1,681,503. This budget includes these cost centers and amounts. So, we want to start with regular instructions and just go right down through. All right, so regular instructions, the amount we have appropriated is $2,680,512. Do we want to do questions in between each one of these, or should I go right down through the whole questions in between? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
So we're looking at a $6.2 million budget. Our friends in Augusta, quick to remind us, they're paying for 55% of education. So I'm I'm looking at, the sheet here, it says we're getting $470,000, that's 7.6%. John, can you explain why you're not getting our 55%, who's getting it?
Sure, that's a great question, Richard. My take on the 55% is that's the state's position on education for the state of Maine. That does not mean that every town and every SAU or SAD will get 55% from the state to run their schools. So for instance, I'll go back 8-9 years ago where I used to work. The budget was, it was a city, so it was a pretty large budget, but about 18 to 25% of that on any given year would be state subsidy. The city next to us was even higher. It was probably close to 50%. As soon as you got to the coast and the coastal town, it was more like 1%, maybe 2%. So in Acton, our valuation for our property dictates what we'll get for state subsidy. So it's 55% of all of the money that the state has for education will be distributed to towns and cities for schools, but not necessarily 55% to each locality.
Anybody else? All right.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I don't know this to us, but we just had a reval done. Yeah, what I would recommend,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Either you can come up or we'll repeat your question when you get to your question so that we can get it on film. But if you want to come up, Dennis? Sure, okay.
where the town just had a reval done, and I think it was Selectman Winchell said that our valuations will go up about 30%. So if that's true, then there's probably a pretty good chance the subsidy we're getting this year will be decreased next year by a certain amount. I would assume that would be true, based on our valuation.
I'm not sure what next year holds, but our state subsidy for this year is up $14,000. And in the news, you might have seen that there was some work that DOE did, the Maine Department of Education, where they reworked the state subsidy formula, and some towns and cities did quite well with the change, and some, I think, lost a bit, and we stayed flat, no change, with an increase of $14,000 in this FY24 budget for the school.
Anybody else? All right, so the next, oh, come on now. There you go.
I guess my only question, and I'm sure that there's a really good reason or a sharp pencil, you might be able to answer this. When we went and we had our budget hearings for warrant and finance, a lot of the individual account numbers, the values have changed compared to what's published here. So what we approved, although the final number might be close or the same, individual line items have all changed. Not all, but quite a few. Is there a reason for this?
Can you give me an example, Charlie?
We went back and just shot that pencil.
Oh, from the very first one? Okay. To the
And that's the reason I said,
okay.
was it just
Sure.
a sharpened pencil?
Sure. Let me help you with that, and you've marked up where. So when we originally were looking at the numbers that we gave the warrant finance and the school committee, at that time we knew what our expenses were, but we didn't know what our revenues were. So then we took a look at the revenues and we looked at the expenses, and Paula and I spent a morning and off-site to go through, and we brought down what we could to about $45,000 or $48,000 difference, about $48,000 difference, to bring it down to a percentage that I thought was acceptable to the community.
Okay,
Okay.
so it's just a juggling then?
It is, and again,
That's fine.
Any other questions on that? No? All right, so moving on, special education. The amount appropriated is $1,352,366. Questions on that, anybody?
According to the report here, we have 10 aides, special ed aides, is that correct?
Do you have Sharon on
Yeah,
line? Yeah, we have our special ed director. You want to bring her up on it? There she is.
Um,
We're gonna let you say hi, Richard.
Hi Sharon, how are you? So 10, is that correct, special ed aides? That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Turn it right
The
left.
model that we have enacted, which is the best model that you can have, is to ensure that students are educated in the general ed environment as much as possible. So we don't do what we call a pull-out model where we have kids come out of the general ed setting. So what we try to do is we try to support our students within the general ed setting with additional adult support. And that has been very, very, beneficial for all of our students. And that's why we have that number of ed techs. We do have a number of students who require individual support in terms of, having specially designed instruction outside of the regular ed setting, and they also need to have supervision throughout their entire day. So that requires additional ed tech support as well.
Thank you.
You had made a comment that no one came to these things, and I want to make sure that we got the money's worth out of Lundyville. On this one here, Warren Finance, we had a final total of $1477,000, and yet on this, it's $1352,000. Left on the back page, special ed totals,
I'm looking at
it
it.
was $1,477,000 and change,
It's less now.
and it's less now,
Right.
and I can't resolve it when I do the math.
Understood. Paul, I'll give you a second to look.
And the other thing is, we had 11 special ed techs in the meetings, and now there's only 10.
Well, we moved one over. And that's where you start. So one of the regular ed techs during this school year was transferred over to Sharon's department, and we made note of that during the budget process.
Right, that was 58,000.
Yeah.
Right. But yet the difference there doesn't add up to
So I'm gonna
58,000.
just ask Paul, was this part of our Monday morning trim meeting?
Some of it was, and the transportation,
You want to come up and do that? I won't look if you want.
Sharon
This will
should
be-
probably speak, because we talked about
Okay.
transportation, how we adjusted the total transportation nearby.
Yeah. So, is he talking about transportation or is he talking about?
No,
Well, in
transportation.
the special ed,
Well-
into special ed.
Okay, so the transportation budget, we
Yeah,
work
I
on
want
track
it.
with the compact, and we have a few kids that need to be transported to special ed schools that are like outside of the city, outside of the town. So our contract with them was a little bit more than I had anticipated. So what we're doing, I don't know what you're asking me, Paul. You're asking me why it's larger than it was?
No, we reduced it, because we reduced it, because I think you didn't have the same number of students.
Oh, okay, so we reduced it because we used it as vans then,
Right,
right?
right.
That's what was happening, I apologize.
Okay, good enough, all right. That adds up then.
Yeah, we used it as vans that we purchased, which is the reason why that line is reduced.
Good enough. Thanks.
I apologize.
We demoed one of those robots on wheels with them. I had them head some years back. Useful right now.
Okay, Kim needed to step away for a minute, so I'll pick up where she left off. Are there any other questions about special education? All right, then let's move on to Article 5, which is other instruction. And the budget amount for this year is $60,055. Any questions about Article 5? None, then let's move on to Article 6, which is student and staff support. The amount budgeted and requested for the 23-24 year coming up is $646,693.
So in this article, at the top, it talks about an assistant principal. I didn't realize we had an assistant principal. Who is that? And is that the same as the instructional coach?
It's a combined position.
Okay. Who is it? Is there a
It's
name?
Pat Canaris.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I need my exercise, you know, my wellness program. Anyway, being into school, and I'm sure you guys grade your students on punctuation and all that stuff. On cost or account, do you call those cost centers or account numbers?
It's under the description, that's the cost center, the number is the account number that goes with it.
Okay, account
The
number.
account number.
1170, do we have one IT director or do we have multiple in that?
I can answer that if you want.
There he is, right there.
So, because he's listed as employees,
Well,
two demerits.
actually, he does the work committee, but he's only one guy.
Okay,
He really covers a lot of territory.
so your students can ding you guys.
Okay.
And then the other was cost center 2170, which goes with 1170 for IT employees.
Yeah, that's our dynamic director, singular.
Good enough.
And
That would be wrong for this description.
it comes from our accounting software.
Yeah, the software that we use for the state tells us how we have to list things. And so, you have multiple listings, Michael. Any other questions under Article 6? Okay, then we're ready to move on to Article 7, which is system administration. And the amount requested for system administration this year is $227,942. Any questions about system administration? Yeah.
Cost 1180. Business staff salaries, I'm fine with that. It's lower than what it was during our meetings. But I noticed that there's no MEPers for any of these business staff. Are they not under any state retirement? Okay, good enough.
Any other questions under Article 7, System Administration? All right, then let's move on to Article 8, which is School Administration. And the amount requested for the 23-24 year for school administration is $153,902 for the next year. Does anyone have any questions about school administration? Article 8. Hearing none. Nobody has any questions on that? We'll move on to Article 9, which is transportation. And the transportation, as you know, is contracted. Amount for this year requested is $361,870 for school transportation.
So yesterday, we're coming by the school at 2:30 in the afternoon. Everybody know what's happening then? 5 school buses out front with a whole bunch of vans, and all the parents are lined up, so you couldn't even drive by the school.
I know.
So my question is, I know there's no good answer for this, but what the heck is going on? Why are we paying $300,000 for 5 big school buses and a whole bunch of vans? And when they go by my house, there's nobody on the bus. There are very few people. Third full maybe? What's happening?
It's a good day to ask about transportation. Mr. Ross drove Bus A this morning and this afternoon. It was interesting because I happened to sit with Bus A, and Bus A is the last bus to pull out of the loop on the return home trip, and I'm driving it, so there's no kids on the bus. I'm waiting to pick them up. And I am watching that traffic pattern, as you and I had a quick conversation about this, Richard. And fortunately, today, only today, Representative sample of N equals 1, one day, there were 2 cars heading towards 109 on the side, and fortunately, the blue pickup had her light, her blinker on, and was off as far as she could get, so people could come. And the line coming in today, as I was sitting there, had 3 or 4 cars, depending on when you were looking, towards the bridge. And it was tricky, but everybody could make it through. My understanding is it's not that easy all the time, and I don't see it because my job most days is running traffic at the front circle with parents. And I agree, there are a lot of parents that drop off a lot more than we've had in the last few years, that drop off their kids and pick their kids up. So every morning I'm out there and every afternoon I'm out there. Today I drove a bus, so I had a different point of view. Why they drive them, I'm unsure, but we have transportation for every student in Acton, and we actually have a grid that has a seat for every student in Acton too. Is every student on those buses? No. There is an increase of parents dropping off and picking up. In regards to when the buses are full or empty, or the perception of being full and empty, and I'm glad you said there may be some kids on the bus, because it may have been empty, it may not have been. There are 2 times in a school day on a school run, in the morning and the afternoon, when there are no children. That's before you pick up your first kid, and after you drop off your last one. And when I dropped off my last one on Acton Ridge Road, I came all the way down the H Road empty, because the last child was dropped off on Acton Ridge Road. So there are times a day where there won't be anybody on the bus. We do have the capacity to bus all of our students if we chose to, if parents chose to have them ride the bus.
You have to have that capacity?
I have to have that capacity, and we have the capacity because we have transportation for all students. So if all the parents, for some odd reason, couldn't drive their students to school, we have a duty to get them there. So we have a seat for every child, but is every child on the bus? No. Some never get on the bus until they go on a field trip, and some are on the bus every day. And the other thing we need to think about is if we ever needed to evacuate the building, we have a very solid plan now we've been working on. We need to get everybody up to the reunification site, which is the Acton Fire Department of Public Safety, and I need to move all children with our buses. So I agree, there are a lot of people driving. I've noticed it because I'm the kind of the traffic cop out front.
Also, I think the NASA would be,
It's up to you.
they're at the end of, towards the end of the runs. So,
I know where they lead down towards the end of Mills, French Street, almost French Street, yeah.
Any other questions on transportation?
just a comment.
With the parents picking up and dropping off, it all started with COVID, just so you know. And some parents don't want their kids in a busload of kids with germs.
They send it to school, they send it kids.
Doesn't matter.
Well, I don't think I need to be there.
Okay.
She can, I was her voice.
But you can't hear it when you're watching TV.
Oh, really?
You're talking back.
I guess so. I really like the art. But you gotta tell me, what does the initials NP above the officer's hats mean?
I don't know that we know. This came from our art
There's
department.
a bulletin board. And I-
Charlie, we're gonna call it noise police.
Sounds good, sounds good.
Any other questions about transportation? All right then, let's move on to Article 10, operations and maintenance. The amount requested on the 23-24 budget for next year is $529,691. Any, what? 5,029, $529,691. Oh, okay, mine says 91. No? Am I the wrong one?
Which thing, we've been turning the pages.
Oh, okay, I'm going.
You're working off the
I'm
front.
working off what, okay, what?
529, 690.
690.
I'll give you the next, the last one's 12, I'll give you the nutrition right here.
90. Any questions about operations and maintenance? Article 10.
I know we went over this probably quickly in our meetings. Cost account or account number 1,500 and 2,000. This was a stipend for the director to use his truck
Correct.
for, just for general running around.
Yeah.
Getting supplies and stuff?
Consider it in place of a school truck, like most schools would have. They'd have their own active school department.
Okay, so this is a reimbursement for the use of the truck.
Absolutely correct.
Can you tell me what the benefits paid on the stipend is?
They're just the tax.
Taxes?
The tax, income tax.
It's considered income, so it's taxed, is what Paul said. Is that what you said? Yeah.
So,
No benefits.
No benefit, no benefit.
well, I'm just going by the language that is on this.
Yeah.
So it's taxes.
Yeah.
Good enough.
Here, all right, last one is Article 12, nutrition. And the total amount requested for 23-24 is $180,155. Do you have any questions on nutrition?
Richard, might have a question.
Richard? Yeah.
Can you ask a couple more questions, General?
Yes, yep, we're going to get at that right now.
Okay.
General
General
questions.
questions.
Judy's letter, the first page of this thing, she talked about increasing student population. Yet the numbers don't seem to be in the chart, don't seem to show that. We're pretty steady.
Pretty
You know,
steady.
It rises and it grows a couple, 2, 3, or 4 a year.
Over the last 3-4 years, we don't have some.
That's also dropped back on occasion too, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll join you.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'm looking-
It's never here.
Okay, let's
So
look at this.
it does ebb and flow, Richard, and we've had a high historically of over 300 students years ago.
Yeah.
To a low of under 200, I think. I'm speaking way before my time. And we are roughly, it was 232 when I started.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, anecdotal, what I've noticed is there's an increase of younger families coming to town, and our pre-K population is increasing over time.
What about the high school population? What's happening to that? The number's in here, but not the past numbers for high school.
Roughly, we support anywhere from 80 to 100 students at the high school level in any given year. And that's our kids that come up through pre-K over the years. And also, if a family moves to town with kids that come to school here, they may have an older brother or sister who then goes to the high school.
So this chart says someplace 79, so that's your.
That's 79 for next year, indeed. Yep.
So I have one other issue here. So this afternoon I went on the United States Department of Education's website for looking at average cost per pupil. You go on Maine and you get there's about 900 schools in Maine, high schools, middle schools, and whatever. We are expensive. We're not the most expensive, but we're expensive. And so I guess we're, every year we do this, we're asking our citizens, some of whom don't have a lot of money, to support a very expensive, not an expensive school. I'm going to be careful because there's a lot of the small school, island schools that are, they have 2 kids and one teacher. They're more expensive on a per pupil basis. But my only question, I don't want to be critical of this, but my only question is, does somebody look at these numbers when they're doing the budget? Is somebody, aware that we've got an expensive operation here? And if that's the case, that'd be okay with me. But I just want to make sure somebody's aware.
We are aware of it, and the reason that we are aware of it is because the essential programs, that what the state actually requires, does not provide for a lot of things that we provide here in Acton. And it has been our belief as a board, since I've been on it, that we want to provide music for every child, have a full-time music teacher, a full-time art teacher, full-time gym teacher. We have a library specialist, library media specialist now, and we have a STEAM teacher, and we don't really want our kids to lack those things because they come from a small school where we don't need too much of, from the essential services. It also, I believe that also doesn't cover some of our transportation and some of our pre-K and kindergarten requirements. So there are a lot of things that we offer here in Acton that make our budget a little bit higher and the cost per pupil higher. But it's because we want to provide all of those things for our students and give them the best possible opportunities that we can in all of those areas. We realize that some students really thrive in art, and they might leave here to go on and major in art in high school or college, or the same in music or another subject. And if they have a good foundation to start with, we feel like we've done our best to help them do that.
I've been on the Warren Finance Committee for over the last 50 years, off and on quite a bit. And I can assure anybody in the town of Acton that the school board and administration and the Warren Finance Committee look very hard at these numbers. And we've had many meetings about them, and Mr. Ross has done a very good job bringing people in to explain why the numbers are what they are. One of the reasons people come to this town is because the class size is down. Don't have 30 or 40 kids in a classroom, and anybody knows the learning environment is better with 15 or 20 or whatever it is we end up with. And Judy's right, everything that we spend above and beyond what the state says what we need to spend is all choices that we've made in the past that we want to do this. And my experience is that some of the numbers are misleading, and I'll pick on Mr. Ross for an example. The amount of money we're paying Mr. Ross, when you divide that up per pupil, say if there's 200 kids that you're responsible for, or 250, is a big difference from the superintendent in Sanford when you divide that cost up with 3,000 kids. So the smaller school districts, the state numbers, if you just go by that, they're really misleading compared to per student. The principal's the same thing. You get a school with 400 kids in it, and the same thing even with a nutrition program. We have a good deal with Sanford on this, but per pupil, I don't know if, well, I know it costs us more money per pupil than it does to see a Sanford for their kid. So a lot of that's, it's fine with what the state says. We're also penalized because of our value in this town. We've been penalized because of our value in this town ever since the state started giving subsidy. And that's just a choice, as far as I'm concerned, that people make when they want to live in Acton. The valuations are high, tax rates aren't, well, they are what they are. And I would just like to say, just so that everybody knows, as chairman of the Warrant Finance Committee, the school board was great to work with. The administration was great to work with. The fellow Warrant Finance Committee members, it really was a good time. And one of the things that I've noticed over the years is, might be some people don't understand, it's a special ed. Sharon Gray does a wonderful job with her special ed. Our percentages in special ed really haven't changed much that I can see in the last 20 or 30 years. There's a certain percentage of our students that need special ed services. And it's always run between 16 and 20%. You can look at any year that we've had this. And this might be, depending on the town meeting, my last term on the Warrant Finance Committee, depending on what the townspeople want. But I would just like, as chairman, to publicly thank the school. They're a top-notch professional outfit. Sharon Gray, she's a top-notch. And I think many times, it's too bad we didn't have this special ed when I was in school. Imagine how it'd be today. Thank you.
I just want to say, yes, I looked at the state numbers, I look at other states. I'm on the negotiation committee, and I'd like everyone here to know we don't pay our teachers the most in the state. Just let you know that. We're very mid, we're right there. We try very hard to reduce our budget. At least the last 10 years I was on the board, we tried to keep it around 5 million, you could go back and look. It went 4.9, 5.1, it was going like that because we kept trying to make changes such as the superintendent principal, instead of having two separate people, having one person. We gave incentive for our older teachers to retire to bring in, I don't know if it's unfortunately, the cheaper younger ones. But we were always trying to figure out how can we keep it down, how can we keep it down. But I mean, at this point, the transportation budget is huge. That just jumped, as everyone knows why. I mean, fuel prices. The amount of money that has to be paid for any services has gone up. I mean, from what, 10 years ago even, you know, we could probably pay someone to work here for $10, $11, $12 an hour. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So as soon as the rates go up, insurance rates have gone up. We can't stop these things from going up. And so now our budget is higher this year. But we work very hard, and because we want what's best for our children, if we need an extra teacher in pre-K, we're going to get it. If we need that extra teacher in the middle school, we're going to get it. Because the townspeople are voting on our budget and saying, yes, we believe we want this school to be the best school it can be. So we're out there, we're trying to always figure out where can we save, and the numbers are what they are. I can't stop the numbers from going up. I've tried. So this was the first year, I'm like, it got a lot, but I mean, there's nothing, we can't cut anywhere else. Now, if the taxpayers come and vote it down, well, that's when you start cutting the services, the extras, any type of after-school activity is usually the first to go, right? I remember when my high school was on austerity and we couldn't, do sports, and that was horrible because I was into sports. Are we going to get to that, or the taxpayers going to say, we're not going to be doing, everything at the school anymore? You can't have full-time music, art, and gym. How about we just go back? I know when I came to this town 28 years ago, it was half-time music, art, and gym. We didn't have full-timers. And then we increased it because we said, no, like, even with gym class, we wanted the kids, I think this came at the Obama era, that we wanted kids to have more activity. They needed to be more active. So we're trying to give them 2 classes of gym per week. We try to do these things, what's best for the children. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Two things. John, I'm sorry, but this one here, it's painful to bring this up, but you opened up the can in your narrative. You had mentioned 2 times, once in our warrant meetings and then once at a town meeting with the board of selectmen, that you were thanking people for allowing the town to move out of town funds, and those were your words, the $100,000 into the school capital reserve account. And yet, that's not what the warrant said. The warrant said to move from the school's unassigned funds to the school's designated capital. So there is a difference, whether it came out of the town's account or whether it came out of the school's.
Yeah.
That is not on this.
That is not, but you mentioned it in your narrative.
This letter.
Yeah, so
we
that's,
moved 100,000 last year from school to school.
yeah, that was
We're
for
looking
your,
to do the future, correct?
right. This, but you mentioned it about last year's movement, and that's the reason why I brought that up.
Okay.
It's not something that affects this budget. I happen to share Richard's concern about cost, because I'm fairly conservative fiscally. And I also happen to share an awful lot of Dennis's concerns about the value of school. I also look at a lot of, where is she? Ms. Stan, there she is. I also happen to look at a lot of the reports on grading for schools. And overall, academically, Acton rates very highly compared to surrounding communities. So I think that should be taken as a feather in the teachers' caps, the administrators, the budget committee, and also the students, that they're actually putting some time in. The budget is a little rich. I agree with that. But to me, from a healthcare perspective, dealing with children in various stages of my careers, the time to expose children to music, literature, dance, any of that is when they're young. It's when the brain is most plastic. They may not all become musicians. They may not all become ballerinas. They may not all become poet laureates. But this is the time to actually expose them to these extra issues that this school actually provides, so that they can go on to become the best that they can be and be more productive in society, as opposed to just giving the bare minimum and just all you get is the bare minimum. So I would like to thank you all.
I just wanted to mention too that we're so proud of our kids when they leave this little Acton school and they go into a school of 1,300 kids in Sanford. Everybody said, oh, I remember we were talking about contracting with Sanford. Oh, it'll be too big a school, our kids will get lost there. Our kids thrive there. And they don't only thrive academically, you'll know that we have kids in the top 10 just about every year, sometimes in the top 2. They go on to very prestigious colleges, some of these kids. And they're also very involved in school athletics. They're involved in, we've had kids here from Acton be the president of the student council at Sanford High School. I mean, they go on to, and all you have to do too is go to some of the productions at the Fine Arts Center down there, and you'll see our kids, Acton kids on the stage performing along with everybody else in some of the big productions that they do. So I think it speaks very well of what we do here at the Acton School and what our teachers do here in preparing them so that when they go, leave this place and go into a bigger school, they're academically prepared and they're socially prepared too as well, so they can find their place in the big C.
Everything that Judy just said about the students is absolutely wrong. One thing that I haven't heard too much about is, and the reason it's wrong, and it's not wrong, you know, I'm just joshing you. The reason though is, at one point, it was said that, you know, sometimes older teachers were retired to bring in younger teachers who make less money, obviously. You know, if you have 5 or 10 years, you're not going to match what somebody who's been in the school for 30 years is making. But this school and its teachers, they look for teachers who have master's degrees and 5, 10, 15 years experience. Now 15 years experience, you're still only talking about a 40-year-old, really. You know, because you've had your schooling, you've had all that. And 15 years, you're a 40-year. That's younger than the 60-year-old that's still here. The way they bring in teachers and the quality of teachers that they have here, that's what produces the children that Judy is so rightfully proud of. It really is. So if the budget is up because they need a new teacher this year, they need that teacher this year. It's not because they would like the teacher. And if you're looking at a teacher, would I be close to, right, you have a master's, 15 years, plus benefits, you're talking about an $80,000 a year person. That's not chump change. But that's the people who teach our kids. And I think it'd be commended about the level of teachers we have here. Because getting them to a small town is, well, where do we go on Friday nights? I mean, I can remember when we moved here 25 years ago asking the real estate agent, well, where do you go out for dinner? And I'll tell you, 25 years ago, there was no Willie's, there was no Iron Tails. And go to Sanford, there wasn't a big choice there either. I mean, so getting what they're offering and what the teachers get here is excellent, and I think you do a great job.
Hello, I just want to reiterate what everyone said here. I'm a product of the Acton school system. My family moved here from Berwick. When I was in Berwick Elementary, I was a CFS student. When I came to Acton in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, I became an honor roll student. I served as student council president here, and it gave me the confidence to run for and win class president in both high school and college. My passion for band by Catherine Eshelman and the commitment she made to me and the students allowed me to participate in the York County Honors Festival and to play in the inaugural parade of Barack Obama. I was a part of that band because of these extracurricular activities that Acton provided. Ms. Davis, who was one of my favorite teachers at this school, she is now my niece's favorite teacher. Every day she comes and talks to me, and I am so excited to see that this incredible teacher who supported me during many, troubling things that I went through the school is here supporting my niece. And when I went to Sanford, because of the Spanish that we taught here, most students were able to skip Spanish 1 in their freshman year and go immediately to Spanish 2. My Spanish teacher, Senator Whitehouse, came and she said, I am so excited to get Acton students because they are some of the brightest and most prepared students that we get. So everything that we do for our students here is really an asset to their future learning and where they're going to go. So the budget may be high, but I think every dollar is worth it for every single student in this town.
So first of all, I would like to apologize because I am one of those high-priced teachers, i.e. I am old. But I wanted to, when Mr. Nass was just up last, I wanted to kind of, got me thinking because of some work, some research that I had done for another project a year or so ago, when he was talking about, you know, the data is good. I mean, data is good. I love data. When I was on the finance committee, I might have been even a little annoying with all the data that I brought. But, you know, and what Mr. Nass is saying, I mean, when he says, you know, it is costing a lot per pupil, more than average here and doing that, you know, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. You know, that the data shows that. But I also think of course, this is a school budget meeting, so it's obviously we're focusing on the school, but I think you also have to look at things like I think the finance committee does, and that's one of the fun things about the finance committee is look at it in comparison to everything else within the town, and then maybe you like to compare with other towns as well. So as part of the project that I was doing, something totally different, so my data is a little, you know, outdated. I just simply took the, you know, on your tax bill, where you look and you see the breakdown. You know, this percentage, you know, here's the percentage of your taxes that are going to the school, the municipal, of course, county tax doesn't seem to really ever vary much at all. I was surprised because I had been on the finance committee for quite a while, and when I mean, that share, the Acton School represented, and many of you have been around here a while, that represented 75, 80, 85% of the whole budget in the town of Acton back in the day. So I hadn't done anything like this in quite a while. So, and again, it's a little outdated. This was, you know, in 2021, but it's still, I'm sure it's going to be pretty proportionally the same. So I look where we're at now when you look at it, well, in 2021, was Acton, the school percent of the total budget for the town of Acton was 51%. Then I compared that, which I was kind of shocked. I was actually, as an educator, I was almost a little too shocked. But I looked at Lebanon. I said, let's look at, you know, you always want to look at similar towns, you know. Lebanon is a small rural town right next borders us. Shapley is a small rural town, borders us. So I went and got their tax bills. And for Lebanon, their schools are 83% of their tax bill. And for Shapley, you know, it was 69% of their tax bill. When in that same year in Acton, it was 51% of the school represented 51% of our tax bill, because I live in Acton too, of course. So I just find that's like the perspective, and it's another way of looking at the data. You know, it's looking at more data. So I totally agree with Richard Nass that, yeah, I mean, it's not cheap per pupil. That is accurate data. But you know, the finance committee looks at this a lot. You know, when you look at it compared to all the other aspects of the town, I think this data is important too. You know, you could look at this data and say, that's pretty good bang for your buck, really. So I just thought I'd share that when that was coming up.
And I think you'll find one of the reasons that our percentage is that low is because we work so hard to achieve the donut hole exemption. We're not a part of a big SAD where you don't have much to say, but you have much to pay. They'll tell you what they'll tell you what your share is. And in Acton, by getting into that donut hole exemption a few years ago, it was a huge savings to the town in so many ways. In being able to control what actually happens within your school, And while we do get good teachers, I just want you to know we don't hunt for high-priced teachers. I want you to be sure you know that. We always look for the best possible fit for whatever position that we have open. Does anybody else have anything else they want to say? Anybody on the board or any other comments before we wrap it up? I wondered where you were tonight.
I just want to let everyone in the general public know, one of the biggest concerns that are happening today is we see in the news all these shootings, okay? All the issues that go around that aspect. In coming to the school meetings and whatnot, I'm amazed at the policies that they have instituted, they've put together to protect the children. I know that there's a lot of money that they're looking or hoping to acquire in order to protect children more, but they're being very frugal about it, okay? In today's day and time, to me, the kids' safety is number one. Their education is number two. This is our future. So we really have to look at that aspect of it. This is a great school. It's too bad I don't have any kids that come here. I've been trying to convince my wife. Maybe we should have some, but we're past that age. But yes, I take my hat off to the school board, to Mr. Ross, for everything that they're doing in trying to protect our kids.
Sure. Most likely at the beginning of the school year 24 in September, I'll have some sort of a forum for parents and public in regards to what we have done to tighten up our security protocols here at Acton Elementary School. One of the things we've adopted, and the staff has wholeheartedly bought into this and understands, as Ray said, the world is a changing place. It seems as though every week we read or we hear about something that's devastating in small towns and large cities. So we've hardened the school. It's a term you use when you look at a soft target, a hard target. We've hardened the school a little bit. We're very, very aware of our surroundings. Situational awareness is something that we have been learning through a program called ALICE, which I'll get into in the fall, which is a prescriptive program to not just shelter in place and be quiet and sit there, but it's a dynamic process, and you respond to what you think might be happening, and you empower the staff to take action. And the action it depends on the level of what the threat might look like. We'll leave it at that for now as we're learning, and we've made some investments in our communication systems. I partnered with the York County Sheriff's Office as well to do some work where I'm able, through some of my resources and my background, to expose the school to some let's just say some processes that are going to keep everybody safer. And really is about minutes matter. Minutes matter, and sometimes you're just buying yourself some time. So I do look forward when we really kind of polish this process and we drill it a little more, like any of you that have been in the military, training, it's muscle memory, okay? As we drill, as we train, as we understand what's going on in the world, I think you'll find that we're right where we need to be. Then again, the world's a crazy place. You never know what the next thing around the corner might be. But we have responded to that, and I'm very, very proud of the staff for saying, this is something we need to do. I actually had one teacher say to me, the shelter in place didn't work for me anyway. I never told you, Mr. Ross, but I had my own plan about how to get out of here if something happened. And I said, okay, now you have permission to do it, and I'm giving you a process by which you can do that, which was great. So thank you for noticing that, Ray, and bringing it to the attention to the people here tonight. Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody has any other remarks or questions or whatever?
If people want to keep going, Judy, I can.
It's all right, Dennis. It's okay, Dennis. We'll call you if we need you.
I haven't had, you can tell by looking at my kids in school for a while, but in this town, I have no problem paying the taxes towards education. And the reason is the end result, right? And doing contracting in the past, when you're looking at people doing bids, I would look at value, not the lowest price. You know, you get what you pay for in the end. And obviously, based on everything we've heard from various people, we're getting what we pay for, which is what matters. So the amount of money, and the fact that they're frugal means we're getting everything we pay for.
Anything else? We vote on May 2nd. It's a referendum vote at the Acton Town Hall. The polls will be open from 8 in the morning till 8 at night. It will be just there'll be a summary vote, and it will just be a yes or no vote. Do you approve this amount of money to support the Acton School Department for the coming year? So you won't have all these categories to go through. That's why you have the budget books now, so you can see what all the categories are, and hopefully everybody understands them and how we came to our decisions on them. All right, if there's nothing else, then amen. We'll call this public hearing closed, and thank you all so very much for coming out tonight.